Who here wants to talk to their Aviva Pi system? Seriously? That guy's a nerd. This is the conversation that's happening in the boardroom of manufacturing companies. What are we doing with AI? We need to do something with AI. Let's go with AI. Goes down to the director, VP layer, gets down to the factory, and they go, we are not ready for AI. We lack a data, we know we need to do something, but we lack a data foundation to make any sense of the mass amounts of data that we have in our factories. And this is what's driving people to us, to industrial data ops. I'm very bullish on AI. It's because it's one of the few pieces of technology, right, that is actually going to help, I think, operators do their job better. People ask, what are the use cases around AI? They're infinite. I'm not smart enough to tell you all the use cases that an operator or plant manager can use to make AI or use AI to make their life better. I'll give you an example. Formerly from Kepware many years ago, that's how I got into industry. Kepware was acquired by PTC, and I joined PTC. This is 2013, 2014. 3D. Does anybody have a 3D printer? Couple people. I just gave my kid a 3D printer. What's the first thing he printed? A switchblade. Plastic. It's plastic, right? Can't bring that to school. Amazing technology. PTC was big on 3D printing with Creo and everything else. The message comes from the top. We need to go out to customers and figure out how they're going to leverage 3D printing. We're going to use it to build exhaust manifolds because we can do designs that we'd never be able to build in casting, right? So I call up a large automotive contact that I had, and I say, how are you using 3D printing? And he's like, Aaron, it's awesome. Let me tell you how I'm using 3D printing. We printed this little part that we can jam into the seat. You know, that the thing that brings the seat back that you're always looking for in the car when you get a rental and you don't know how to do it. We can jam it into the seat, and it'll just move the seat back. So when we're doing the car inspection, at the end of the line, we don't have to sit in the seat and move it back. We can do other inspection parts, and then when the seat's all the way back, we can sit in it. This was not the use case that PTC was looking for, right? That wasn't it. But that was real ROI to the business, because that was 10 to 15 seconds with every car coming off the end of that line that wasn't wasted with someone sitting in the seat. I'm not creative enough to think of that use case, and I think AI is the same thing. You give it to somebody with a problem, and they're going to find really creative solutions that drive value for the business. So the use cases are infinite. Why is this hard? It's 2026. We can't use, our data isn't ready to use AI. Why is that? Who here has been in industry for 5 to 10, understands this problem? Like, do you come from manufacturing? A couple of you. Okay, so you get it. This is why, right? Complex architectures. OEM piece of equipment comes in, right, with a SQL database to share production data. Some smart individual wrote a Visual Basic script to scrape that SQL database and drop production counts onto a SharePoint Excel file, and that's what we're using to report production. It's been running that for 10 years. There's 3 people in the plant that know how it works. We have integrations like that all through our factories, these point-to-point connections to get a job done, never thinking of an overall data strategy, right? Just get the specific job done. Data variety. We all think about telemetry data. We think about machine data and metrics. Truth is, that's 80% of our data by volume, not 80% of our data by value. Metrics alone, machine state alone, is not enough to drive value for AI. What part are you producing? What's the bill of materials for that part? Who's working on that line of that? All this additional data that's transactional data, that's historical data, that's not just raw telemetry. Missing context. This is our biggest problem. Right? When someone installed that press machine 15 years ago, the controls engineer was in there wiring up the PLC, getting data into the HMI so they can operate it. They weren't thinking, this thing needs to be globally recognizable to my entire enterprise. If they were thinking that, they'd be a genius. But they were just thinking, I need to get this done so I can check out and get home. Like, I just need to hook this thing up. So we're left with all these integrations that, yeah, it gets data to an HMI, but we weren't thinking about this contextualized problem. And lastly, we just don't have the resources and people to go and do this, right? To go provide all the context and information, the existing stuff we have. We need shortcuts and ways to do this at scale. My name is Aron Semle, CTO of HighByte. I joined in 2020, Company was founded in 2018. In 2020, John Harrington sat in an office, very small office, and was on calls back to back trying to explain to people what industrial data ops is. 5% of the people he talked to knew what he was talking about. That's not John's fault. They were just context, like, what are you talking about? I don't need this. Today, we don't sell the problem anymore. Everything I just showed you, people know they have the problem, right? And this executive level is saying we need to do AI. So people come to us and say, we need a data foundation on which to do this, and we need to do it fast. We know the problem that we have. We have many customers, many years of experience. I like to say we have customers that we have a fish farm in Sweden that uses our product, all the way to modern, companies that are building the next generation of space aircraft. So that's like the whole spectrum. Anywhere you see automation, we have this problem in industry. This is my favorite, this is my favorite slide that HighByte has because it shows where we fit in an architecture. Below us is the OT stack. It's all the stuff we've accumulated over the many, many years, right, to solve these specific problems that we have. And I would argue for the most case, it is a mess. It's a mess because we've never had a data strategy. Even if you've done a decent job, which there are some that have, I could go factory to factory that produces the same part, and I guarantee you this stuff is different, right? Above us is the enterprise. At the enterprise, we need to all agree on what a press machine looks like, what a motor looks like, right, to use these global resources across our factories. So industrial data ops is the thinnest layer that I can put at the factory level that connects to the mess that I have, gives it context, and makes it shareable across the enterprise. So when I push a motor definition to AWS services, it's the same across every factory, regardless of their Rockwell and Siemens or Mitsubishi, you name it, doesn't matter. I've abstracted that away, right? The key with industrial data ops is it doesn't copy any functionality you already have in OT. It's not doing graphing. It's not doing historian. It's not doing device connectivity. It's not doing SCADA. You already have all that. It's simply the contextualization layer that's helping shape that data and get it to AWS services and other services. And AI is the latest consumer on the north side of that, right? It wants that contextualized data, and it wants it across the enterprise in the same format. What that looks like is the various systems we connect to. My favorite is files. One of the worst parts of my job is someone comes to us and says, Aaron, this CSV file isn't parsing. And then they send you the file, and it is not a CSV file. Like, not even close. But we have a lot of data locked up in files and other messes. AWS is one of our better partners on the cloud, one of our best partners on the cloud side, because they realized this problem many years ago because they hired many people from industrial. So we've been partners with them for 4 or 5, almost since the inception of the company, they've realized this problem. So we have very strong connectivity into AWS services, many of which are listed here. But this isn't about HighByte or AWS. This is about the customer. This is about Bayer. Who here needs aspirin? I need aspirin. If anyone has, I swear, if anybody has aspirin, please bring it up to the stage. This fair is amazing, but it's exhausting. What I really love about this use case, okay, is that a controls engineer that installed an Aviva Pi system 15 years ago, which I love our space. It just exists forever. In a validated pharmaceutical environment, went in with industrial data ops, HighByte, connected to that solution to pull pieces of that data out, enabled it with MCP. Who knows what MCP is? Model Context Protocol. Awesome. MCP is a way to make remote procedure, for an LLM to make remote procedure calls, way to ask questions and take actions on data, right? So they expose parts of that Pi system through industrial data ops to MCP and to an LLM that they have internally that runs on AWS Bedrock. He wired it all up, and then he started, in a chatbot interface, asking questions of the Pi system in a validated environment. He set it up 15 years ago. He's the human-in-the-loop expert. And he got really interesting answers. Not interesting in terms of hallucinations. Interesting in terms of valid answers back. Enough so that he was impressed to, A, do a case study with us, with AWS, and B, start to think about how are we going to extend this. And the beauty, well, let's get into the architecture. I'm a CTO. We'll get into the architecture. So HighByte is on the left. Left of us in the factory is Aviva Pi as well as some other data sources. HighByte is contextualizing and providing access. If you threw an entire Aviva Pi system into an LLM, you'd make AWS a lot of money, but you would drown the context of that LLM really quick, right? That's not practical. So you need to expose just parts of that Aviva Pi system. In his case, it was event frames, it was aggregate data that was coming out of Pi, as well as asset frameworks. So he was able to create custom tools for the LLM to ask questions like, what was the yield on the last batch? What was the yield compared to the last 10 batches that came through this reactor? Those kind of specific questions, and the LLM could reach into the Pi system, grab the data it need, do the inference, and get the results. They have their own, it's called MyGenAssist internal chatbot that's running on the back end of AWS Bedrock. What's beautiful about AWS Bedrock is I can choose, it gives me an abstraction away from the LLM and models. So I'm decoupled from the LLM providers, right? I can switch, use Claude, I can use any of the services that I want. The other part they're exploring with this is additional AWS services, because the truth is a lot of the data context is coming from Aviva Pi, but there's also other context from the business, right? From the ERP system, from the MES, et cetera. Like what's the bill of materials, who's the customer for this product, those kind of things. So this additional information locked away in S3 can also be fed into Bedrock to provide additional context. So we geeked out on this. I think this is a really cool use case. Everyone's talking about agentic AI, totally autonomous. In truth, this is where the industry is. I think he's fairly bleeding edge in doing this, right? I'm connecting to a system. I'm using a chatbot with a human in the loop. Super important. Don't want hallucinations with autonomous AI agents. But this is kind of the leading edge of where we're at. Doesn't mean we won't go autonomous at some point. I wanted to do a product demo. There's no keyboard. I can't do a product demo. Come to the booth, and we can show you what this looks like. Now they're asking some interesting questions, right? First of all, I don't need to go into, this is a clean room environment. I don't need to go into that clean room to ask questions of the data, right? I don't need to go bug someone in the clean room, has anyone been in the clean room, put on the suit? It's a pain. I've done it only a couple times. So now we can access that data and that expertise externally through an LLM, right? That opens up a lot of efficiencies and possibilities on the data. A more interesting question is, what is all the tooling we've built around all the static dashboards, all the static reports, 10% of which we might actually be using that we've had to maintain, how much of that do we actually need anymore? And that's what they're starting to explore now. If we can just do some inference and validation of the data through the LLM, do we really need all this extra stuff that we've built up and tried to maintain? The beauty of the architecture is that Bayer is a global company. Sure, they have Aviva Pi in this facility. But I can go to the next factory and they've got IP21. I can go to the next factory that acquired and they have Honeywell PhD. The fact is, because we have this data ops layer and we're exposing custom tools to grab event frames, grab batch data, we can take those tools and interfaces and we can bring them into each one of these factories, and we can use data ops to wire it into whatever historian they have to answer the same questions in the same context. The truth is, we're all using the same LLMs. We're not all using the same context. Right, and this allows me to bring the same context into the agent such that I can bring the agent factory to factory and get the same result. And that is very key when we think about scaling agentic AI and AI in general. And that's it.